For more on the firing of Mike Brown, we welcome in a man who won 3 championships with the Los Angeles Lakers, Shaquille O'Neal. Shaq, thanks so much for joining us.
How are you, Jared? What's going on, brother?
Doing well. Shaq, you've been very critical over the first 5 games of Mike Brown's offensive system. Are you shocked that Jim Buss and the Laker organization decided to let Mike Brown go?
The answer to that is yes. I mean, I at least thought, my thought process was if Coach Brown doesn't go 6-4 after 10 games, then the Laker organization would look to do something else. But I woke up this morning in a maze, sure as the rest of the world was, and Jim Buss, the great Jim Buss, said, it's not working. We don't have time to mess around. We spend a lot of money this year to get it going this year, and we're losing time, we're losing momentum, so I think it's time for change. As Kenny Smith said the other day, change is good.
Shaq, with all of the new parts on this roster this year, they tried to get it going during the preseason, didn't win a game, off to a 1-4 start. Now to change it again, do you feel like 5 games into the season, starting over, will benefit all these new players?
Man, first of all, I always felt that the players didn't buy into the system. I felt that, they were not comfortable. It kind of shows out there first 5 games, a lot of turnovers, missed defensive rotations. So it depends on what, direction they go. If they bring in a guy young and a lot of energy, a guy that consults with the players, a guy that, talks to Kobe and Nash and, see what type of offense they would want to run, you never know. A lot of teams, when they change the head coach, they got that, they got, 4 or 5 games where they play with a lot of energy. And then once the honeymoon phase is over, then, the true test always, comes back, to reality. So, it's a lot of names be thrown out there. I would like to see personally, them give Brian Shaw a chance. He was there when, me and Kobe was learning how to become champions. And, Phil Jackson's name has been brought up. He lives in Southern California, so it's real close. Mike D'Antoni's name has been brought up. So, it's a lot of, there's a lot of great opportunities out there. I would also like to see our good friend Coach Fratello get another chance in the league. Because I sit there with him, and you sit there with him, and he's so knowledgeable of the game, and he speaks a language that these kids understand today. So, all those guys, I would like to see any one of those guys get a chance.
Shaq, this is the quickest firing of a head coach in Laker franchise history in terms of being in L.A., but you can sympathize with the players because back in 1999, Dale Harris was let go when you were with the team 12 games into the year. What advice would you give the current players to getting adjusted to a new coach and maybe an entire new coaching staff?
I mean, the Los Angeles is a town that's very, very impatient. When this super team was put together, everybody had high expectations. So, even though Nash is injured, and even though Kobe's foot is injured, and even though Dwight is not really 100%, the people care about that, but they don't really care about that. They still want to see you go out there and play with a lot of energy. And, a lot of people feel that, doesn't matter what type of offense they run, you should be able to beat this team on talent alone. So, they haven't been playing with a lot of force, with a lot of energy, and hopefully whoever the new coach is, he could, get them to, play at a higher level because, the LA fans, they expect that, they want that, and that's what they're accustomed to.
Shaq, you've thrown out a lot of names for candidates that you'd like to see be the next head coach of the Lakers, but whoever it is, do you feel that coach should be somebody who wants to put Dwight Howard to the forefront of this offense?
Well, it's not about putting him at the forefront of the offense. Kobe's still the number 1 option, but he needs to be a main part of the offense. He's one of the best bigs in the league. You need to get him going, and then if you get him going, once he starts dominating, it's just going to open up for everybody else. I said earlier that once Dwight starts dominating, Pau Gasol is going to be the biggest benefactor. He's going to get a lot of easy baskets because, he's getting up there in age too. He's going to get a lot of easy baskets. He's going to get a lot of wide open jumpers. So, once everything starts flowing how it's supposed to flow, then, this team should be very, very dominant.
All right, no better source to check in with on this subject as Mike Brown gets fired. Shaq spent 8 seasons with the Lakers, winning 3 championships. Mr. O'Neal, thank you very much for your time.